I wasn't supposed to be home yet. The late summer sun was still high when I turned onto our quiet, maple-lined street in suburban Portland. My heels clicked against the driveway as I cut the engine and silenced the playlist that had carried me through another 12-hour day at the design firm. The house looked exactly as it had when I left that morning. White shutters, hydrangeas blooming defiantly. But something felt off, like a painting slightly askew. Through the open front door drifted the muffled scrape of cardboard against wood. I froze, keys biting into my palm. "This will fit in the back of the SUV," my mother's voice said, hushed but brisk. My father grunted. "Good. The sooner we get her settled in that little studio, the better. Less chance for her to change her mind." Studio? I stepped inside, my silk blouse clinging to the damp heat, the scent of lemon cleaner mixing with the sharp tang of packing tape. There they were, Mom in her favorite lavender cardigan, Dad in a plaid shirt, kneeling beside a half-filled box labeled in my mother's neat script, "Claire's books."
Claire.
My name, but suddenly it sounded like someone else's. "Hi," I said, the single word slicing through the air. Mom startled, the tape gun snapping back with a metallic click. Dad straightened slowly, guilt flushing his weathered face. "We didn't expect you back yet," Mom stammered. "Clearly." My voice wavered between a laugh and a knife. "What exactly are you doing?" The room tightened, heavy with secrets. The hum of the fridge grew louder, and for the first time in years I felt like a stranger in my own home. I still remember the night everything cracked open. Back then, I was 19, all freckles and big dreams, my hair still sun-streaked from late summer runs across the high school track. College had been the plan, graphic design at NYU, a life filled with colors and city skylines. But the Carter household, no, the Thompson household, had other blueprints, and my name was stamped in the corner like an afterthought. That Friday evening smelled of roasted chicken and lemon cleaner. Mom's pearls glimmered in the kitchen light, a tiny constellation against her navy sweater. Dad sat stiff at the head of the table, his knuckles pale against the oak. My acceptance letter, creased from the grip of my hopeful fingers, lay like contraband between us. "Harper," Dad began, voice clipped as the first cut of winter. "You're not going to New York. It's reckless. We've already spoken to Pastor Reed about an internship at the church office. You can live at home, and I'm not staying here," I blurted before courage could catch up. My pulse hammered. I could hear it in my ears. "I got in. I earned this." Mom's sigh slipped out like steam from a kettle. "Sweetheart, city life will eat you alive. You need stability. A good job. Someone to take care of you." The words burned. My hands trembled beneath the table, fingertips brushing the smooth paper of my letter, the one thing that felt real. "Someone to take care of me?" I repeated, my voice shaking now. "I can take care of myself." Silence. Only the clock's relentless tick filled the room. That was when Grandma June's voice floated back to me, her steady, low drawl from summers on her porch swing. "People will try to box you in, Harper. Don't shrink. You're meant for wide skies." My throat tightened around the memory. Grandma had passed 2 years earlier, but her silver locket still rested in the top drawer of my nightstand, a tiny compass etched on its back. I pushed back my chair. The legs screeched across tile, a sound sharp enough to slice the night. "I'm going," I said, each word tasting like iron. "With or without your blessing." Dad's jaw worked, but no words came. Mom blinked rapidly, pearls trembling with her breath. Upstairs, I slipped Grandma's locket around my neck. The metal was cool, a quiet promise against my skin. I zipped my duffel, heart thudding with a terror that felt almost electric. That night, as the house slept, I walked out the back door and didn't look back. I rented a room above a quiet bakery in downtown Portland. The scent of rising dough would drift through the cracked floorboards every morning, a gentle reminder that small beginnings could still smell like hope. I was 23, clutching a secondhand laptop and the faint echo of my mother's parting words. "You'll never manage on your own, Olivia." Yes, I'd started introducing myself as Olivia Bennett. My given name, shared with every family photo, Every Christmas card felt too tightly knotted to the past. Olivia was who I wanted to become, a woman untethered, a woman who built her own ground to stand on. The first months were messy and unglamorous. By day I worked the bakery counter, dusted in flour and coffee grounds. By night I devoured online design courses, my eyes burning from the glow of tutorials long after the neighborhood went silent. I'd fall asleep with half-finished sketches of interiors, loft spaces I couldn't yet afford, clean lines and warm woods that existed only on my screen. Sometimes, exhaustion pressed so hard on my chest that I wondered if my mother had been right. I'd rub the silver locket my grandmother gave me, the one that held a tiny pressed sprig of lavender, and remember her voice, "Grace grows in quiet places, darling." That sentence became my quiet anthem. One rainy Thursday, the bakery owner introduced me to Harper Quinn, a regular who always ordered a double espresso and left generous tips. Harper ran a small but respected interior design firm and caught sight of the sketches sticking out of my notebook. "You drew these?" she asked, eyebrows lifting beneath her chic, salt and pepper bob. My heart thudded. "Yeah, just ideas." "Not just ideas," Harper said, tracing a fingertip along my penciled floor plan. "You've got an eye. Ever thought about an internship?" That simple question cracked something open. Harper became the first person outside my grandmother to believe in me without conditions. She took me on as an assistant, unpaid at first, but she paid in mentorship. She taught me how to pitch to difficult clients, how to balance color with light, how to walk into a boardroom without apologizing for taking up space. The climb was brutal. Long nights, coffee that tasted like burnt hopes, and more than one client who dismissed me with a glance. But each small win, a satisfied homeowner, a magazine feature, the first check big enough to cover more than rent, built a quiet foundation no one in my family even knew existed. I curated my social media like a locked diary. Snapshots of coffee cups and sunsets, never contracts or awards. When my father occasionally texted a stiff "hope you're well," I replied with a neutral "doing fine." I wanted the proof of my success to stay hidden until it mattered most, until the day I could stand before them, not as the girl who left, but as the woman who built a life they never imagined for her. I stood just inside the French doors of my loft, the late afternoon sun washing the room in a soft golden light. The skyline glittered beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, steel and glass catching fire in the sunset. It was the same city that once swallowed me whole, now a stage for my quiet triumph. The elevator chimed, a crisp ding that echoed across the polished concrete floors. My pulse quickened, but not from fear. I'd rehearsed this moment in my mind so many times it felt like a scene from someone else's life. When the door slid open, my parents stepped out, Mom clutching her oversized tote like a shield, Dad scanning the space with a frown that deepened with every detail he took in. Behind them, my younger brother Tyler trailed, hands stuffed in his hoodie pockets, his eyes darting everywhere. "Charlotte." Mom's voice quivered. This is where you live." "Yes," I said evenly. My name hung in the air, firm, certain. "Welcome to my home." The loft wasn't ostentatious. I'd made sure of that. But every inch of it reflected the life I'd built. A black and white photograph of the Golden Gate Bridge, my first big photography sale, commanded one wall. The antique walnut desk gleamed under a pendant lamp, a quiet testament to the long nights I'd spent editing wedding photos until dawn. In the corner, my vintage Hasselblad camera rested on a glass shelf like an old friend. Mom's eyes flicked from the custom leather sofa to the steel bookshelves lined with hardbound portfolios. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. We thought you were in some tiny studio apartment. You never told us." "I know." I let the words land. "You never asked." Dad cleared his throat, a familiar rumble of authority. "Charlotte, we were only trying to help. We packed your things because we assumed you'd need, well, help moving. That neighborhood of yours wasn't safe. You shouldn't have to live like..." "Like what?" My voice sharpened, surprising even me. "Like someone you underestimated? Someone you thought couldn't stand on her own 2 feet." Tyler shifted uncomfortably, staring at the floor. I walked toward the walnut desk and picked up a single envelope, sliding it across the polished surface toward my father. "This is the deed to this loft," I said, my tone steady. "Paid in full. No mortgage. No landlord waiting for rent." Dad blinked, his hand hovering over the envelope as if it might burn him. "I built my own photography studio 2 years ago," I continued. "Booked enough weddings, portraits, and magazine shoots to not only pay off this place, but also employ 3 assistants. I have contracts lined up through next spring. I'm not the daughter you thought needed rescuing." Silence filled the space like a rising tide. Mom pressed a hand to her chest. "I had no idea." "That's because every time I tried to tell you," I said softly, "you were too busy telling me why my choices weren't good enough." Dad's jaw worked, the stubborn set of it faltering. "Charlotte, we just wanted what you thought was best," I finished for him. "I know, but what you thought was best was never what I needed." I turned to the massive photograph on the wall, the bridge suspended in a halo of fog. "I did this on my own terms, and I'm proud of it." Mom's eyes brimmed, guilt flickering across her face like a sudden shadow. Tyler finally looked up, his voice barely a whisper. "Char, this is amazing." For the first time that evening, I smiled, not out of triumph, but out of something deeper. The kind of peace that comes when you finally stop seeking permission to be exactly who you are. I rested my palm against the cool marble edge of my kitchen island, the faint scent of freshly brewed coffee still hanging in the air. My parents sat opposite me, their expressions a blend of awe and unease, like travelers who had stepped off a familiar road and suddenly found themselves in a foreign city. Mom clutched her handbag tighter than necessary, her knuckles white. Dad kept glancing at the panoramic window as if the Manhattan skyline might somehow explain all of this: the penthouse, the artwork, the life they'd never imagined I could build. I inhaled slowly, steadying the little tremor in my chest. For years I had dreamed of this exact moment, not as revenge, but as a reckoning. "Before we talk about anything else," I began, my voice calm but unyielding, "there are some things I need you to hear, and some changes that need to happen if we're going to have any kind of relationship moving forward." Mom blinked, her lips parting, but I raised a hand gently. "Please, let me finish." The silence that followed was thick enough to taste. "First," I said, meeting Dad's eyes, "you have to stop deciding what's best for me as if I'm still a scared college kid. I've proven I can take care of myself. I need you to see me as the woman I've become, not the daughter you thought you had to control." Dad's shoulders sagged. He gave the faintest nod. "Second," I continued, turning to Mom, "you have to let go of the fear that my independence means I don't need you. I do, but not the version of you that meddles and second-guesses. I need the mom who once told me, when I was little, that a woman's greatest strength is knowing her own mind." A flicker of recognition softened her face. The corners of her eyes shimmered. "And finally," I said, letting my voice drop to a firmer register, "if you want to be part of my life, it has to be with honesty. No more half-truths about what's for my own good. If you think I'm making a mistake, say it. But don't pack up my life behind my back. Ever again." The weight of those words settled in the room. Outside, a distant siren wailed and faded into the city's hum. Mom's eyes brimmed, but she didn't look away. I thought we were helping," she whispered. "I know," I said, my throat tight. "But helping isn't deciding for me. It's standing beside me." Dad cleared his throat. "You're right," he admitted, the words slow and heavy. "We treated you like you couldn't handle it. That was wrong." For the first time that evening, the knot in my chest loosened. This home, this life, I swept a hand toward the floor-to-ceiling windows. It's mine because I fought for it. But what I want now is a family that respects the woman who built it. A quiet understanding passed between us. No grand apologies, no dramatic gestures, just a subtle shift, the kind that cracks old patterns wide open. I reached across the island, offering my hands. After a long moment, they each took one. "From here on," I said softly, "we build something new, together, and on my terms. Mom's fingers tightened around mine. Dad gave a single, deliberate nod. For the first time in years, I felt the ground beneath us change, steady, level, and finally mine. The late afternoon sun slanted through the wide windows of my loft, pooling gold across the oak floors. I stood near the railing of the mezzanine, watching the city hum beneath me, tiny cars threading the avenues like beads on a string. For the first time in years, my chest felt light, as though the years of hidden hurt had finally uncoiled. Behind me, the faint clink of cups came from the open kitchen. My parents, who only a week ago had believed I needed rescuing, were quietly rinsing the mugs they'd used for the coffee I insisted we share before they left. My mother caught my gaze and gave a small, tentative smile. Not the brittle one she'd worn for so long, but something real. I remembered the night I'd first walked out of their house, suitcase in one hand, my grandmother's old silver locket in the other. That locket, warm now against my collarbone, had felt like a promise that I could build something of my own. Today it rested exactly where it belonged, a soft weight of history and triumph. My father cleared his throat, his voice rougher than I'd ever heard it. Claire, he'd finally started calling me by the nickname I'd chosen for myself. We misjudged you. We thought we were protecting you. We were wrong. The words hung in the quiet like a fragile bridge. I crossed it with a slow breath. I know, I said. And I'm not angry anymore. But we can't go back to the way things were. If we're going to be a family again, we start fresh, respect, honesty, no more deciding what's best for me without asking. My mother nodded, tears glistening. We can do that, she whispered. We stood there for a long heartbeat, 3 people relearning the shape of love. It wasn't perfect, it never would be. But something inside me, something fierce and tender, recognized that imperfection as the real thing. As they gathered their coats, I stepped onto the balcony, cool wind teasing the ends of my hair. Below, the city glittered, alive and certain. I pressed the locket between my fingers, feeling the etched initials of the grandmother who had believed in me before I believed in myself. I smiled, not just at the skyline, but at the woman I had become, self-made, unshaken, and finally free. With the sunset burning copper across the horizon, I whispered the truth I'd waited years to own. I came home early and found my strength waiting here, all along.